What's up, everyone? This is Xavier, your host, and welcome to the 210 Stockyard.
The UFL season is almost here. Training camp is just days away. It begins Saturday, February 24th. All teams may begin camp with a max of 75 players, meaning the Brahmas had to release 21 players to be in regulation. And what's even more crazy is that within the next 30 days, there will be an additional 25 players cut before league play begins on March 30th. So let's take a look at some of the notable players released before the start of training camp, and brace yourselves, some of these may shock you. Now right out the gate, the first two names that stood out to me were the quarterbacks Jack Ice Cream Coan and Kurt Benkert. Kurt Benkert didn't come as a surprise as he announced his retirement back in August 26th, 2023. I was surprised that we kept him on this long and kept him as a protected player, so in my opinion that just kind of held up a roster slot. He is now signed with Space Station Gaming, I believe. He's a professional gamer now. He also does consultations with the betting and fantasy app called Sleeper, and he's actually pretty accurate with his bets, so I followed a few myself, made some money off of him, so thanks Kurt. Now, not surprising is the release of Jack Coan. Coan wasn't great, okay? He did show improvement in the last two games of the season, but it was just too little too late. And I've said it multiple times, and I'll say it again, I understand why he struggled. It's a first-time team, a first-time coach, a first-time league. We had a bad O-line. The Brahmas did not have a great offensive coordinator. In fact, we went through 2 or 3 in the first season. So I really didn't expect too much greatness out of it. I did expect, though, that he would remain on the team through camp to at least be able to compete. But I guess his performance and his stats just weren't enough to keep him on the team. He did end the season making 150 passes out of 242 attempts. He finished with over 1,400 yards passing and 6 touchdowns, but also had 6 INTs. He also managed to run for a total of 108 yards, but once again, lackluster performance as he only averaged 5.8 yards per pass. So that leaves the quarterback competition between Quentin Dormady, San Antonio native, he's actually from Boerne, Texas, Tom Flacco, brother of NFL quarterback Joe Flacco, and Chase Garbers, who played his college football at Cal and most recently played in the NFL with the Raiders. Next up in the running back room, I was somewhat shocked, and at the same time I wasn't, to see that we released our number 2 running back last year, Kallen Ballage. He did show up in some moments and had some noteworthy plays, but ultimately his stats weren't great. He had 55 rushing attempts for 149 yards. And though he was a fan favorite, his production, honestly, I don't see that as something that Wade Phillips would want to keep around. He's not as young as some of the guys that we've got coming in, and I hate to sound negative, but maybe it is time to just hang him up. Next up, this one hurt only because he's local. Running back Marcus Cooper from the University of Incarnate Word, which is here in San Antonio, was released. Especially when looking at his senior year stats, he had a breakout year. He had 212 carries for 1,436 yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground. He also had 31 receptions totaling 289 yards and 3 touchdowns in the air. This guy, in my opinion, does have high potential. Now, I understand the drawback on him is his size. He is short for a running back. I believe he's smaller than 5'9". And doesn't weigh a whole lot, but he is versatile and has speed. I would compare his running back style or play to Darren Sproles. So I gotta be honest, I was a little sad to see him released. We also released wide receivers CJ Wyndham and Juan Carlos Santana. Santana was a little surprising just because he was one of our players selected in the rookie draft. He played his college ball at Tulsa, and hopefully those guys get a chance to prove themselves somewhere. But it is understandable that we got rid of wide receivers. I'm surprised we didn't get rid of more, as we do have a stacked wideout room containing Nick Hawley, TJ Vasher, Calvin Turner, and Kurt Warner's son, Cade Warner. There was just too much competition in that room. Now, another surprising player released from last year's squad was edge rusher Michael Scott, whose brother Delonte Scott just re-signed with the team. And of the two, of course, we were going to keep Delonte Scott, as he ended the season with one of the highest player ratings that we had on the team. He ended with a 90.7 grade. So while we lost one brother, I am glad to say we kept the other. Next up, inside linebacker Lorenzo McCaskill. This guy I was so excited for when we drafted him in the rookie draft.
Down in 14, Larisha with more on McCaskill.
Is. Well, he is actually the person who was aggressive, crazy, and loud. He's the one that comes in the locker room, will bang his head on the locker to get the guys hyped and ready. He likes to get everyone going.
He was part of a raging Cajun defense that went 13-1 in 2021. They were back-to-back Sun Belt champions in 2020 and 2021. He was named second team All Sun Belt, and this guy was and is disruptive. This was a huge pickup, and I am just beyond shocked to see him released, especially as Wade Phillips is more of a defensive coach, and his whole mentality is that above all, we will have the best defense in the league. I know we have other players that are as good or better than McCaskill, but Jesus, that was a good prospect to let go. I do hope we somehow manage to get him back. Another lineman let go was Trevor Harmanson. He's 6'3", 230 pounds, and this one I guess stung a little bit again because it's another local player that was released. He played at UTSA, and remember, they were back-to-back Conference USA champions. He was a part of that team. In fact, he ended his career there being third on the team in tackles his last season. He can make stops, he gets tackles for losses, and he is part of the reason why UTSA was back-to-back conference champs. So another good young local prospect that I didn't really want to see let go. And just to kind of throw salt on the wound, guys, I hate to do it, but yet again we released another DB. Another guy that played locally at Incarnate Word was Micahh Smith. Incarnate Word did have a very successful season last year and the year before. Smith was a part of that, and it would have just been nice to keep someone local on the team, but I guess we do have again our quarterback Quentin Dormady from Bernie. It just would have been nice to see someone on defense as well. And last on the list that I have to shout out, and this one was no surprise just because of who we're keeping in his place. So we let go of kicker Christopher Dunn. Now Dunn was named to second team All ACC his freshman year. In 2022, he won the Lou Garza Award, which is basically the Heisman for kickers. And in 2022, he was rated the nation's best kicker in college. He was also a first-team All-American, and despite all those accolades, he did go undrafted, but immediately following the draft, signed to the LA Rams and was released 1 month later. Dunn's release makes sense only because of who we signed after him. The Brahmas signed internet sensation and YouTube star Donald Delahaye, aka Deestroying. And for those of you that don't know, Deestroying is part of the reason why college football now has NIL. He became famous for his YouTube videos that he would make of him doing trick kick shots or just living life in general. He became very popular and now has over, I want to say, 5 million subscribers on YouTube and 2 million followers on Twitter. Delahaye does bring a lot of media attention. He already has a big fan base and following, and apparently he's a good enough kicker to keep on the team. I'm not trying to talk down on the guy or the Brahmas organization at all, but I do see keeping Deestroying over Dunn as more of a marketing move, and I honestly hope that he works out in the end. And there you have it, folks. The first round of cuts has been made. We ripped the band-aid off on that one. What are your thoughts? Now, I know I didn't mention everyone's name as there were 21 players released. Is there anyone that you were shocked to see let go? Who did you hope we'd keep or perhaps bring back? What are your thoughts on both the quarterback competition and the kicking, aka controversy, if you will? I am so excited for training camp to start, and even more excited and anxious for the season to start. Like and subscribe if you haven't already for more Brahmas and UFL content. Once again, I'm Xavier, your host, and if you mess with the bull, you know what you get.